How you doing, everyone? In this part, we're going to cover the volume Seekers and Saviors. Classic rescue stories of various kinds. Alright, let's begin. We'll start with the beginning pieces of art. The classic, let's see, a woman, a maiden being kidnapped, by some guy in black armor. Everyone else tries to rescue her but fails. So they send off a hero who defeats the man. And of course, he goes to the last page. And he's boarded by, boarded by her endearment and all that. Okay. Of course, these come in various forms. Like, oh, what's this? A cat on its hind legs with a pair of boots talking to a boy? Under the wing of magic. Of course, this is a story of Puss-n-Boots. Let's focus on this, read the caption. The lingering power of the elder world once lay concealed everywhere, even in the most commonplace of creatures. In the French countryside, a house cat added man's speech to feline cunning and set out to make its master rich. Here we go. Let's see. Save my master, cried a cloak and booted cat, and through enchantment it convinced a nobleman that a miller's son was a lord himself, fit to marry a nobleman's daughter. And of course, text here, further on. A nice two-pager right here. As a suitable home for his master's bride, the cat provided a fine manor house, servant, and rich lands, all stolen from a sorcerer less wise in magic than the smooth-spoken feline. There we go. I'll read the story here. Spirits of the well, spirits surviving from the first age of the earth, sometimes showed themselves to mortals in strange forms indeed. One such appearance occurred during the days when Britain was a land of many kingdoms. The witness was the king of Culture's daughter, and her venture began with banishment. Jealous of the maiden's beauty, the stepmother of the princess sent her into exile with no more than a loaf of brown bread, a wedge of hard cheese, and a pot of small beer tied up in a rough linen bag. The princess made her way through the wood and valley until she came to a place closed in all in with the thorn hedges and pockmarked with caves. In the mouth of one cave crouched a small man, gray as a rock and looked as the thorn branches. He gazed at the princess with bright eyes and asked why she walked alone. To seek her fortune, she said bravely. And what have she in the bag? For an answer, she offered him food and drink. And when he had feasted, he smiled and smiled out on her and gave her certain directions. Following them, the princess made her way through the hedge of thorn to a clearing where the stone well stood. Sorry, I said thorn. It's actually thorn. Glare and all this. She sat down beside it. At once, a round object bobbed up in the water. It was a head with golden hair. Wash me, comb me, lay me down softly, it sang in a high, whistling voice. The princess did as she had been bidden. For that head and for two more that appeared after that. And when she was done, the bodiless creatures clattered softly to one another. What shall we give her? Said one. Beauty to charm the greatest of princes. Body and breath scented with flowers, a king to find and love her. And that is what happened. She continued on her journey, and in the next valley a kingdom found and loved her. He sheltered her as his own all his life. The man and the heads were later found by other humans, it was said, but rewards were only for the kind-hearted. People who displeased the heads were given leprosy and foul stink instead of beauty and perfume. Okay, got right here. Among mortals, women were best able to call upon the enchantment that flowed in the world, using the power of spells to shield their children. Thus Katla, the Icelander, hid her son from his enemies by changing his shape to a distaff, then a goat, and then a boar. This one's one of those unfortunate stories here. Got a bit man talking to a fish. The fisherman's benefactor. Who knew where magic power might reside? A poor fisherman of Cornwall found it in a flounder that he caught. When he pulled the fish from the waters, it spoke in his own tongue. Because it had human speech, the fisherman let it go. In return, the flounder offered prosperity. He might have kept it, but for his termagant of a wife. When she heard the tale, the woman looked at the hovel in which she and her husband lived, and made a proper cottage. Reluctantly, the fisherman returned to the shore and called for the flounder at surface, staring at him with a flat eye. My wife begs a boon, said the fisherman. What is it? A proper cottage. Go home then, and she has it. And so he did. A tidy cottage set in the garden. But she was satisfied. But she was satisfied for only a few days. Then she sent the fisherman back to the sea with new demands. She wanted a castle. She wanted to rule the land as a queen and live in a larger palace. She wanted an empire. Each time the flounder gave what she asked. Each time the fisherman approached the sea, however, the waves were darker and rougher. On a day of windstorm, the fisherman trudged to the shore for the last time. The flounder was waiting, tossing in the swells. What does she want now? It said. She wants to be God. Thunder cracked, the water crashed, the flounder's eyes glimmered in the gloom, and it said, Too much asked, nothing will be given. She goes back to the hovel as before. So the fisherman returned to poverty. Hard days of harvesting the sea, the dreary nights of scolding by his thwarted wife. The haunting picture here. When they spoke of motherhood's magic powers, Danes told of a woman who rose in a grave because her children were mistreated. In this way, she frightened her husband into giving the young ones proper care. Let's see, going along here, see a man on a horse, seeing a woman with her horse near a river. In Germany, once a queen's daughter journeyed to her wedding, lost her mother's protective talisman in a stream. Her envious lady-in-waiting, watchful for just such an opportunity, took the princess's place and forced her into servitude. We got a good Arthur Rackham painting here, or drawing of some kind. Reduced to the role of a goose girl, the queen's daughter was tormented by a servant while she tended the flocks, but the magical guardian would deliver her. Again, story, that may seem kind of cryptic, but the text itself will give more details. This may be a continuation. Let's see. The guardian of the Princess Goose was an enchanted horse. Its fidelity was such that even after death, when its head was nailed to the city gate, it spoke to give her comfort and reveal her rank. Undying guardianship. Let's see. Now, I don't have to read this story to understand what this will be once I flip the pages. See a young, beautiful woman here. And 3 women, one looking older than the other 2. And she's down scrubbing. Yes, this is Cinderella. This is their own version of it. Continuing on. Of course, being, after she was rejected and everything. She does find a means to help, help her along. She does go to the ball, looking very beautiful and, standing out. And as I said before, if you have any questions or want to know who the artist is, let me know, and they have it listed in the back. Just testing out the shoes, they don't quite work. And eventually it does find her. Tests of love and loyalty. There we go, I'll read the captions here. Cast into swans shaped by enchantment, 6 brothers sailed the skies of Sweden year after year, but their sister knew the key to the spell. She had to make them shirts from nettles, and not utter a word until the task was done. This one has a bit more cryptic, passages, if you're not familiar with the stories already. And this one, you see a woman about to be beheaded, but then the swans come about. Facing execution, the sister of the Swan brothers kept her silence and clutched the shirts that would make them men again. When the swans themselves flew to her rescue, and their own. You have a young man with a wing for an arm. All the Swan brothers were free from enchantment, but the youngest lived out his life with a wing for one arm. The magic shirt his sister made him lacked one sleeve. Star Brothers of the Northern Sky. To show the transcendent power of fraternal love, the Greeks told the tale of Castor and Pollux, known as the Dioscuri, or striplings of Zeus. Some said that the gods sired these twins on a human woman, so that one was immortal like the father, and one was mortal like the mother. In any case, they were inseparable in peace and war, Castor being famed as a horseman and Pollux as a boxer. Castor the mortal fell in battle with his brother beside him. In his love and grief, Pollux prayed to his father that he too might die and dwell in the underworld with his twin. But even Zeus could not give death to an immortal. The god therefore translated the brothers into stars, to float forever, singing in the dome of heaven. Castor and Pollux still may be seen in the northern sky of the winter sky. May be seen in the northwestern region in the winter sky. Their heads entwined bright stars in the constellation Gemini. Spartan warriors prayed to them, for they were patrons of the brave. Greek sailors called upon them for their shining could quiet storms at sea. Picture of a woman there gazing upon a castle up on a hill. Once it was dangerous to run toward the sun and leave one's shadow unguarded, for the fairies could take it to their own country. It was how fair Helen of Scotland became a captive of the King of Elfland. Let's see. Got two men fighting there, horses in the foreground. The caption reads, in search of his sister Helen, the warrior called Childe Roland crossed into Elfland and slew the minions of his king. His first opponent was a horse herd. So here he is in conflict with another person here. And her in the background. See if I can position this. Again, sorry for the glare. Constant problem when doing these reviews. In the Elf King's dark shadow, Childe Roland found his sister, and there he battled for her life. Here we go. Looks like a festivity with a whole lot of animals gathering. See if we position this. To every bird and beast in Ireland brought to his hall was what the High King asked for freeing Finn Mac Cumhal. Finn's warrior Caolite, sorry I can't pronounce this, Caolite, paid the price for love of his leader. Interesting picture here. 3 women behind a web with a warrior on the other side. Finn Mac Cumhal and his men once ventured into fairy territory and were trapped in a web of weakness by 3 cave hags. A member of the company eluded the net, however, and he would rescue his brothers in arms. Of course, it's a pretty gruesome picture next. There's 2 of them beheaded, one about to be. Fighting alone in aid of his fellows, Gull of Connacht faced the power of the old magic and earned his honored name, the Flame of Battle. Oops. Let's see. The next one, this a slave maiden's eye for evil. I won't read the story, but I'll read the captions here. With these one of the illustrations. Faithful Morgianna, slave of Qasim and Alibaba, closely guarded her household. Story of Alibaba here. While Alibaba watched from hiding, the brigand chief opened the door with a magic word. Qasim, brother of Alibaba, found the brigand's treasure cave and died there. Let's see. To save Alibaba, Morgianna paid a cobbler to conceal the brigand's injuries to Qasim's body. Let's see. Through the streets, Morgianna guided a cobbler who was blindfolded as a precaution. Robbed of his booty and the body of his victim Qasim, the brigand chief plotted revenge. In the shape of an old merchant, the brigand chief sought Alibaba's hospitality. Let's see. Into leathered oil sacks where the brigands were hiding, Morgianna poured boiling oil. Oh, that's pretty mean. But all things considered, yeah. Alright. Skirts flying, dagger flashing, Morgianna danced for Alibaba's enemy and wove his doom. Let's see. Strong arms, sturdy heart. Picture of a knight in front of a lady. I'll read the caption here. Try to get less of the glare. There we go. An Enchantress's wrath transformed Sir Gawain into a dwarf and made a pony of his battle charger. To undo the spell, Gawain had to show he possessed a full measure of knightly merit despite his abusive form. Never know. Don't recall Gawain going through that, but apparently he shows it off here. Two men rough up a woman, and here he comes charging in. The test of Gawain's valor came in the form of two rogue knights. Although no larger than a child, he challenged him into combat, thus displaying a courage of the bravest of men. There we go. Taking refuge in a mouse hole and shadowed crannies of houses and barns, a fairy-made boy named Thumbling, tiny in size but great in heart, escaped those who sought to exploit him as a freak. Tom Thumb, I'm guessing. You got a woman showered in gold. Of course, I think in real life you probably wouldn't want to be underneath coins dropping on you, especially gold ones. Some of the old ones of Earth reward mortals who revered them. German maidens found that if they sweetly obeyed the spinning fairy, known as Mother Holly, she might shower them with gold. About 4 people to foreground with a castle behind. On the Welsh realm of Dyfed, 2 noble couples had the temerity to trespass on Fairy. At once, thunder sounded and mist cloaked their world. There we go, a picture of them. When the magic mist lifted, Dyfed was empty of animals and people, seeing themselves alone. The 4 mortals, Pierderi and Manawyddan, and their wives, Kigva and Rhianna, left the desolate kingdom and set out for England. Let's see, you got a couple of people forging shields of intricate design, like so. A position like this. Reaching England, the exiles became craftsmen, shield makers, saddle makers, sewers of shoes. But the anger of the fairies followed them, it seemed. They were driven away from every English village and forced back to Dyfed once more. See, a man with a spear with his dog. Well, 3 dogs, and going up. Looks like they're facing a boar heading into a white entrance. Let's see. Focus on him. In empty Dyfed, a splendid palace appeared, and this was the next part of the pursuing spell. Manawyddan and Pierderi stumbled upon it while hunting, and Pierderi was drawn across the threshold. With the fairy palace, Pierderi was held in thrall by a vessel of gold. Rhianna herself, of the fairy race, but tied to humankind, sought to rescue him and was trapped as well. Just can't get a break, can they? A man holding a field mice in front of other field mice eating the crops. Ever wrathful toward the mortals, the king of the fairies sent an army of mice to devour the grain. But men and women chased the destroyers and captured one. Here we go, with one of the mice. In front of fire spit and all that. With a captured mouse as a hostage, men and women bargained for the lives of Rihanna and Perderi, and for the health of his land. In the end, Dyfed was restored, and all things set again on a course that vengeful enchantment had turned askew. The Quests of the Fair Unknown. Let's see, how long is that? This is kind of a lengthy story. I'll just go over the paintings here. A man's been given a sword. Oh, there is captions here, so we can briefly go over that. A man without a name came to King Arthur's court in Caerleon. So fine a man was that he was given knighthood, and he was called Belancanu. A picture in a courtly scene, king, a ruler looking down to the maiden in front. The handmaid and the Queen of Wales begged Arthur to aid her mistress. The quest against enchantment became a test of valor for Belancanu. Two men fighting on a bridge. I just love these John Howe paintings. In the wild lands of Wales, Belancanu battled a knight who guarded a enchanted fortress. A fairy mistress stole the young man's heart away. Of course, a lady is in the background up here. It's a very haunting picture there with all the statues there. Of course, the knight on the bottom, positioning it like this. Into the dead city of the enchanted Queen of Wales, a knight rode and deathly palace guardians watched his progress through the silent streets. And some action going on here. Let's see how we can position this. An adversary waited in the Queen of Wales' palace, an adversary who attacked Belancanu with axes that flew at him as of their own will. Now, this is a very striking painting right here. The second assailant to confront the questing knight was a sorcerer whose horse breathed fire. Sorcerer and horse melted into the mortal sword stroke. You know, yeah, it is quite a mean horse there. And then he's dropped around by a glowing serpent. When he had vanquished two enemies, the third trial awaited Belancanu, a glowing serpent that gilded toward him and wrapped him in strong coils. Of course, here he is by a tree, lying down. His trials over, his quest accomplished. The knight who now knew his name awakened alone in the forest. The time had come to take his rightful place. Belancanu, Gingalan, son of Gawain, took a wife and a kingdom at last. She was Wales' queen, whom he had rescued from enchantment. So the quest was to save the king. All this was apparently to free Wales so he can rule there. With the queen, it was rightly her land as well. Well, there you go. That's the end of that. Again, any questions about illustrations and all that, I can answer here. That is Seekers and Saviors. Thank you all for watching, and you all have a nice day.